we live? Are we good? Huh? All right. It's been a minute. Welcome, everybody, to episode number 31 of the Beautiful Frustration Podcast. We are back in this thing. Um, I'm your host, Charles. Here, joined by my lovely co-host,
Tish.
and yeah, we back up in this thing. Um, it's been a little minute since we've done an episode, and most of you who are friends with us on Facebook and whatnot, you know exactly why that is. Life has been kind of a kick in the butt at the moment, so yeah, had to take some time to be human beings and just kind of work through some things. And tonight, we're gonna talk about it. You got anything you want to intro to?
Not really. Just,
And
I'm
y'all
excited
see,
to be back talking with you guys.
I was about to say,
I
y'all
hate
see.
when we go, long spans of time. We get on a roll where we have episode after episode after episode, and then something happens, and then it's just like a month or two or three without an episode. So,
Yeah, but something pretty major definitely happened.
oh, you're
You
right.
know,
You're right.
and it kind of knocked us both for a bit of a loop. And so tonight we're here to talk about it. Feel like we're both in a pretty good place to talk about an update on our lives, and kind of dig into it a little bit. So, um, kind of digging into Tish and I and our history. Aside from being married, one of the main things that we've always wanted was children. Like, I still remember back in the day, us getting married and saying like, "Hey, let's take a year of just enjoying each other, and then after about a year, let's go ahead and start trying to build a family." That was like our thing, right? That was our plan. And so year came and went, and we were ready to start, trying for real, and nothing was really happening. So we tried it the natural way. Nothing's happening. It's not really popping off the way that we, hoped for. It's still fun trying, obviously, but we're not getting the results that we're looking for, right? And everybody's telling you, just take your time, don't rush it, and all that good stuff. And so after a while, we started taking, supplements, and we were going to see the doctor, and we trying to get checked out, make sure the parts are working properly. You know what I'm saying? And from what they told us,
Oh,
everything is, Gucci for the most part. And so some time keeps passing, and then next thing we're like, all right, I'm working at a job that I hated, but at the same time the benefits are amazing. And one of my coworkers is like, well, have you and your wife ever thought about in vitro fertilization, right? And I'm like, nah, not really. But she actually had her child through IVF. So, I told Tish about it. I'm like, hey, let's try it out. And there were a lot of complications with that too. So, we would get one step along the way, and then something would happen, and it's just like, ah, crap. Okay, so it's getting pushed back, and then it got pushed back. We tried again, um, and it was just pretty much a no go. And my insurance was basically like, that's it. They only pay for like 2 cycles or whatever. So after that, we're like, all right, man, maybe we like Abraham and Sarah out here. You know what I'm saying? Maybe we just not meant to have no kids, and we got to be okay with that if that's what it is. You know what I'm saying? And so we started looking into adoption. Um, Most of y'all know because we've talked about it on the show before, or you just know us. We fostered a baby for a little bit, which was, a very cool and different experience. And that kind of made us both realize, I think, hey, we can do this. We can be parents. So we're like, let's start looking into, adoption. And we were going to do, the process of getting our license and all that. And that never quite panned out in terms of timing. And then next thing Big Baby Rona came through and just shook everything up. So I mean, it was just like we trying to figure our lives out. Now, mind you, we're in coronavirus season, right? And as we're going into it, I'm making jokes at work and stuff, and I'm like, man, shoot, I might come out of this quarantine with a baby. You know what I'm saying? I'm locked up with young honey over here. You know what I'm saying? You never know what's gonna happen. And I'm joking, and it was like, how far into it?
May.
So yeah, everything shut down in March. In May was when Tish let me know that she was pregnant, and I'm like, what? Like this is crazy, right? You know, I'm like, we ain't even thinking at this point about trying to have a baby the natural way, and now all of a sudden she's pregnant. And so, how did you feel, Tish, when you found out that you were with child?
Mm, um, I didn't really believe it. I was super shocked and really, really, really caught off guard. But I was excited. I was nervous, and I don't know. It was unexpected. So I was very, very, very caught off guard for real. Shocked, super shocked.
Yeah, she found out. She came in the room where I was working at, and she's like, um, it happened, and I'm like, what happened? She's like, I'm pregnant, and I'm like, huh? You know what I'm saying? Like it caught me off guard. Y'all excuse me. I know my face looks greasy and I'm sweating, but I'm sacrificing for y'all right now. Okay, I turned our air conditioning window unit off because I ain't want that blowing in the background. I'm trying to make sure y'all get crisp, clean audio. Okay, so I'm putting my life on the line at the moment. All right, but um, for me, how did I feel? I was pretty excited. I was speechless. I didn't really know what to say. I was grateful to God in that moment because, I mean, one of the things that I felt, and even today I still do believe, was once I really started getting my life together, and I felt like God was moving me to a new place in life. Um, I felt like He had told me straight up, now that you're living the way I want you to, I'm gonna bless you guys with what you want, right? And I still believe that to this day that he held his promise, right? He let us know that we could get pregnant. So at the same time, I was nervous and anxious because my mind, and I shared with a few of my friends, my mind instantly went to what if the baby doesn't make it? Like I started getting nervous about that because I'm like, it finally happened, but what if like our child doesn't actually make it to term, right? So before I get into that piece of what ultimately happened, um, I want to talk about how pregnancy made me view my wife. The idea of you being a mom. You know what I'm saying? That was something new to me. Like, I think it just amplified like how I feel about her, because it just made me want to like serve her. Like I enjoy the process of like catering to her, and she's trying to be hard headed, and like I need to go here, and I'm like, nope, I got it. I got it. She's, well, I need to go to so and so's house, and this was like early COVID season. I'm like, girl,
This ain't
heck
early
no.
COVID. This is May.
It was in the thick of it, and I'm like, no, I don't think so. Nah, I'll go do it. Whatever it is, I got it. I was Johnny on the spot with it. You feel me? But it made me view her in a whole new light. I enjoy really watching her go through that process. Sometimes she was uncomfortable and stuff, but it was cool to see you like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, man, she's carrying our child inside of her. So I think it just made me look at you in a whole different light. What did you think? Like, did you have any thoughts about me being a dad?
Um, yeah, I always called you baby daddy for, you know, for the time, for, the time being. And I just, I don't know, the day that I told you, there was just like an expression or a joy kind of on your face that I can probably honestly say I've never seen before. And so like the way you shifted into like protective mode. No, you can't go here. Nah, you shouldn't do that. I'll do this. I'll do that. I'll get it for you. Like you even going to Walmart to pick out some leggings because I couldn't fit in any button pants and videoing the stuff that they had there, and I'm like, okay, I gotta hurry up and pick because I don't want him to get frustrated with me, or I gotta hurry up, and just find something, even if it's not what I would pick, just, pick it because I don't want him to get mad and be like, okay, you know what, forget this. But surprisingly, you were super, super patient and was like, at least it came out to me that you were super patient. You might have been like cussing in your head or something like that.
No, I wasn't you. I was tired of wearing that mask in Walmart and I was burning up. But I wasn't frustrated with you at all.
So I don't know, just for that small amount of time, if you were doing all of that in the first few weeks, it's like, whoa, wait till I get, real pregnant. Like, how much more is he gonna be there for me? How much more is he gonna be willing to do? So yeah, that's what I thought about.
Oh, that's sweet. But yeah, no, it wasn't even something that in my mind it was like, oh, this is what you're supposed to do, so do it. It was like, because right now, like, if she asked me to do something, or before that, if she asked me to do something, like I'm downstairs and hey, can you bring me something? Like, man, I just sat down. I just sat down. But during that period, it was just like this urge to just be like, man, I have to, take care of her. I have to take care of our kid. I gotta do this, and it just felt natural. You know what I'm saying? Which made me feel good in a sense because it's like I do have the fatherly instinct. Like that's what that showed me. That when it comes down to it, that like I'm about that life. You know what I'm saying? But then on top of that, it was cool to have like the amount of support we had from the community around us. That was dope to see people who were like just genuinely celebrating with us, who through nearly 5 years at that point had been like just praying for us and trying to encourage us, and they knew the struggle. You know what I'm saying? Like Tish always talks about, we have a marriage counselor that we see, and how excited she was. You know what I'm saying? We on the basically what is a Zoom call with her doing our sessions, and she running around the room when she found out. Like it was just dope. Even us getting a chance to tell our parents was really cool. Seeing my mom's face and stuff like that. Like, how did that feel to be able to share that with your parents?
That's a video that I probably will never get rid of. It was, because it was, first of all, it was on Mother's Day. So our parents have been wanting to be grandparents for as long as we've been married. So for them to just be so caught off guard and like us not alluding to anything, we find out and then we hold it for a few days until we tell them. And my parents' expression was just, I don't know, my mom's was just, it was just priceless to me. So yeah, that'd be something that I will keep forever, and I would probably post it at some point. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm a person, I like surprising people. That's just my thing.
I know.
And you hate that.
I know.
But I love surprising people because I like to see their initial reaction to something that they don't expect. And that, telling my parents that they were going to be grandparents and on Mother's Day, and they didn't expect anything, that was priceless.
And in real talk, it's not that I don't like surprises. It's just that Tish, when she knows something you don't, you can tell she's enjoying it a little bit too much. Like, instead of her just having the surprise and not saying anything about it, she'll have the surprise and constantly keep alluding to it or hinting at it or constantly reminding you that you don't know what this thing is that she's keeping secret. Like she enjoys that a little bit too much. But that's neither here nor there. But yeah, community was great. Thank you. Community was great. We even had people buying stuff ahead of time, for us and whatnot, and it was just dope to see, people put their money where their mouth is, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? Like actually being there, hey, what do y'all need? Like, whatever, offering tips, advice, what I'm saying, giving us things. That was dope. But then we came to this point where it was what, a Wednesday night?
Tuesday.
So it was a
Day
Tuesday
after
night.
Memorial Day.
Okay, the day after Memorial Day. Yeah, because yeah, yep. So Tuesday after Memorial Day, it's a normal day, just like any other day for the most part, and we're getting ready to go to bed at this point. I'm laying in the bed in my drawers with my popcorn, and I'm about ready to tap out.
Lord.
And Tish has like kind of been going through it a little bit over the past couple days, and she just hit me with the something ain't right. She was like, I don't feel like I'm supposed to feel like this, and I'm like, what do you mean? I'm confused. I'm sitting there like, bruh, like, stop overreacting. You ain't never been pregnant before, so like, stop overreacting. Like, but real talk, deep down inside, for me, it was more of a sense of exactly like, please don't do this, because this has been what I've low key been afraid of, is something going wrong. And so I'm like, please be overreacting. Like, I'm projecting how I feel onto her in that moment. And so she's just like, hey, can you, like, I need you to take me to the hospital. And so now I'm conflicted, because in one sense, I'm like, if my wife says she need to go to the hospital, she need to go to the hospital. I got to take her. But on the other hand, I'm like, nah, maybe we should just wait this out. You got a doctor's appointment coming. Coronavirus is out here, and I'm low-key scared of you going to the hospital. My mom works in the hospital. She's been telling me about the conditions and stuff like that. And I'm coming up with all kinds of excuses in my head.
You talking about something now? Ain't the time to be going to the hospital. So I was like, if you don't take me, I'm going to take myself.
Yeah, she knew what she was doing with that. Like, I'm going to let her go by herself.
I'm going to drive myself.
I'm like,
because you're coming up with all these excuses as to why I couldn't go. And I'm telling you, it's not like I'm just going to wake up and say, oh, I want to go to the ER today. No. Like, if I'm saying this isn't right, what I'm seeing is not right, what I'm feeling is not right, I need to go to the ER, and you coming up with all these excuses as to why I should not go, I'm just going to be like, you know what, forget it. I'll take myself. If you don't want to go, I will drive myself, I will park, and I will walk into the ER myself. Which, I mean, I ended up having to go in myself anyway, but still.
Yeah, and I wasn't going to let her go by herself. I think I was in denial in that moment. And so it was just like, no. Because instantly my mind is going to, oh, crap, it's happening. Like, it's happening, for real. But I'm still holding on to hope that maybe it's not what I think it is. So I took her to the ER, but like she said, I couldn't go in myself because of coronavirus. So I go to drop her off, and I'm like, yo, what's good? She was like, I'm going to go check and see, No,
because you said, I'm going in. I don't care what they say. I'm going in. And I'm like, okay, Big Bad Wolf, you're not going to get to go in the hospital. You're not.
I was trying to be in there with my lady.
I get it, but yo determined I'm going in no matter what they say.
I think I could have pulled it off if I had pressed harder, but I wasn't. I ain't that type of person.
I don't think you could have, because they wasn't letting anybody.
They was gonna let me in there, or they was gonna drag me out.
Sure.
Okay, I'm about that life. Okay, I'm hardcore like that.
Okay.
All right, they would have had to drag me out of there, but I decided to comply. All right, she was like, she came back and told me, nah, only I can go in there. And so I'm so hot at this point that I just drove off. I literally just drove off and went and parked across the street somewhere. And so at this point, like, I'm just praying. And because again, I'm in a much better headspace at this point. God has done something amazing in my life where I'm just like thinking totally different than normal. Like my mind is in a totally renewed place at this point. And so I instantly go and I'm like, okay, you've been on this, you know, kick of this is the lifestyle you own and you trust in God. So I just go and I start praying. Like I'm praying and I'm talking to God straight up. I'm like, Lord, please don't make us end up looking like fools. We've spent all this time celebrating, and I keep telling people about how good you are and how you said you were going to do this. And you know what I'm saying? I'm like, please don't let this be what I think it is. And that night, I was up to probably like 4, 5 o'clock in the morning because I ended up just going back home since I couldn't be there with her. And I'm talking and texting with her throughout the night, and finally went back, picked her up. We come home, we go to sleep. And I ended up going to work the next day because I'm like, and got no sleep. You know what I'm saying? And my boss understood that. And I even talked to him as well that night, letting him know what's going on. And he's like, all right, I'm praying for y'all. Um, so yeah, we didn't get no news that night. What did they tell you?
They told me that they still heard a heartbeat and that the hemorrhaging that they saw was normal and that I needed to follow up with my doctor because the heartbeat that they heard was not as strong as they would like. And so when they said that part, I was just like, yep, it's the beginning of it passing through.
Yeah.
But they were the doctor was like, you're still pregnant. And I'm like, okay, all right, thanks. So, I went home.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, from that point on, some days are passing. We're waiting for her doctor's appointment on Friday. Mind you, at this point, um, I had been asked to preach at our church that coming Sunday. So that text came to me the previous Sunday before this whole situation where I took her to the hospital. And the message that God gave me was from Isaiah, where he's talking about, God promising to basically give you, a crown of beauty for ashes. And he's, um, basically turning, your mourning into joy and, all of those things, right? And so that was my sermon, based on that. Not knowing that come Friday, we were going to be facing this situation with losing our child. So Friday is her doctor's appointment, and I'm scheduled to record my sermon at the church since everything, is digital. I had to go to the church Friday during the same time her doctor's appointment is. So I take her to the appointment. I go to the church. One of our friends, volunteers to come pick her up and, basically, sit with her. She's going to sit and wait for her at the appointment. And so I went and I preached, you know, preaching with that on my mind. That's probably the news that I was going to get. And I still believe to this day, God really empowered me to be able to preach a message, honestly, preaching to myself, giving myself encouragement of what was to come. And it was probably, I would say, the hardest I've ever preached in my life because I was like exhausted afterward. Um, because I don't think I've ever preached a sermon that was quite as personal and real for me. Um, so yeah, that's over, and I'm talking to an older friend of mine who's doing the recording, and I'm telling him what's going on and everything, and that I'm about to hit up Tish and find out what the verdict is, and I leave outside the church and she out there already. So I go up to her, and what happened from there, Tish?
I mean, I just told you.
I don't want to do all the talking.
So I go up to her and no. So
just flow with it.
I got you. So basically, going back a little bit. I got the news on that Friday when I went for the ultrasound that it was indeed a miscarriage and I was, miscarrying the baby. and I didn't want to tell him before he preached, and I didn't really want to tell him like over the phone or anything or Marco Polo or anything like that. I wanted to tell him in person. So once my friend picked me up from the doctor, we went over to the church, and the timing was perfect because pretty much as soon as we pulled up, he was walking out. And I just kind of told him. He was just like, "So, what's going on?" And I told him, I said, "Yeah, it's a miscarriage." And of course, I bawled and cried in his arms and stuff like that, and just kind of, I don't know, sobbed. But Friday basically just confirmed for me what basically I knew the doctor wasn't telling me, but was telling me on Tuesday. So from Tuesday all the way to Friday, dealing with the physical pain that I was going through of this, and the physical pain causing a lot of emotional pain and stuff like that. By Friday, I was, it was just like the icing on the cake. So it's like, okay, well, I've been praying that this is not it, but it is it. So now I have to deal with the fact that it is what it is. And I told him what it was, and that's pretty much, all I could really do or say at that time.
Yeah. Um, so I mean, after she told me the news, like in terms of how I felt in that moment, I think like for that time, God gave me the peace I needed so that I could be like strong for her. Because I didn't really break down in that moment. I wasn't really shocked because I think mentally I have been preparing myself for that being the news. Like, I think I would have been more shocked or surprised by her saying, like, no, everything's fine. Like I was kind of like, okay, this is kind of what I expected. So, yeah, I prayed that night when I took her to the hospital. I was just like, Lord, I need you to give me peace over this situation. I'm telling you my frustrations and everything with this, and I don't know what's going to happen, but I need you to give me peace. That if it does go the way that we hope it does not go, that I'll be able to deal with whatever your will is. And for that time, that's exactly what he did. Um, I think my concern was for her. I was worried about her because I've sat and I've watched this woman go through like countless situations of having her heart broken with the idea of having children in the time that we've been together. And my fear was honestly the whole time, God, please don't let us miscarry this baby. Even when I dropped her off, it was like, please don't. Like I felt like David in the Bible when he was praying about his son, after he did what he did with Bathsheba and all that. And he's praying, even though God told him he was going to take that baby, David was like, I prayed just in case God might change his mind. And, he didn't. You know what I'm saying? Even though obviously in my case it wasn't promised for us to lose our child, but I've that's kind of how I felt, in the same sense of me praying and asking God for something, begging God for something, but ultimately it's His will. You know what I'm saying? And I still don't understand it, but it's not my job to understand. It's my job to trust in His plan. So I mean, that's pretty much how I felt in that moment when I first got the news. How did you feel when they told you?
I hmm, I was super sad. Um, I was angry for a short period of time. Um, and I think sadness more so because during that whole entire week, I pretty much knew what was happening because I went from feeling pregnant to feeling normal. Like nothing like the pain that I was feeling. Of course, I felt that the physical pain, but the the feeling that I had when I actually was pregnant was leaving. Like it was gone. And so dealing with that in an emotional sense was hard. Um, and then the idea of, oh, I'm no longer pregnant had me, kind of messed up. But I was sad. I was very, very, very sad. Um, but that didn't last a long time. It was just after it was confirmed on that Friday, I went probably like another week with feeling the physical part of it. And after the physical part of it, I really asked God, like, okay, I'm reminded of this right now because I feel it physically. But after this physical part is over, I need restoration and I need healing. I don't want to keep walking around with this, me being sad about this and me dragging every single day. I need to start preparing my mind and my body for trying again. So that's where I kind of, my mind and everything went to. But in that moment when it was happening, I was angry and I was sad. Those were my two emotions.
Yeah. Um, and I think once again, community really showed up for us. Because I had to go work after that. Like I had to leave her so I could go and do my job, and that was hard enough in and of itself. But to know that we had people who were like, no, I'm not gonna let her be on her own today. I'm gonna keep her with me, and we're gonna go hang out. We're gonna go do stuff. That made me as a husband feel good. To know that even though I physically can't be with my wife, to be her support right now, literally as we just found out, you know, there are people who are willing to do that. And so yeah, and then even that night, we had a pretty good time. Got invited to a friend's house, and just having people around us, kind of encouraging us and just loving on us was really dope. Um, so you kind of shared how you felt when it happened, Tish, and I think you kind of got to how you feel currently, right?
Um, Kind of. It was, I don't know, like during that whole entire, well, at the beginning when I started to see abnormalities and things that weren't right, I said a prayer and I asked God, Lord, please don't let this be. And by the end of the week, it was what it was. So when I say I was angry at God. And I said that one prayer um, on Tuesday when I was in the ER. And then I didn't say another prayer at all until probably 2 weeks later, something like that. 2 weeks later, um, because I didn't want to talk to God. It was just at first in my mind it was like, why would you allow us to get pregnant and then take it away? That was my initial thought. Initial, um, and so that was the part of me that was angry. That was a part of me that was mad, and sadness, of course, about the whole situation. Now I mean, there's a whole lot of things that have come up that have shown me, one, we've spent all this time trying to get pregnant, almost to a point to where we're like, can we even? Like, is it even possible?
Keep skipping ahead, huh?
You said now. How do I feel now?
I'm talking about just how you feel personally.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So you got to start preaching. We ain't even got to that part yet.
I wasn't even agree.
I'm taking us on a journey right now.
All right. I'm traveling with you.
Right on, right on. So, but no, that was kind of how she felt. And I think in the beginning I was the exact opposite. um, I was committed to, and it's probably the first time I'm ever saying this out loud. I think for me, I was so committed to this idea of me having this new mindset and being renewed by the Holy Spirit and stuff like that, that I thought in my mind for me to say anything other than I trust God and God is good and all that in the midst of this was me reverting back or me somehow showing that this faith that I proclaimed to have and that God had blessed me with was like inauthentic. And I think for with that, I just kind of got myself into this mode of I'm gonna keep carrying on the way I've been. I'm gonna keep, saying that I trust God. I'm doing these morning encouragement posts every other day or so, and I'm telling other people how in dark times you got to trust God and all that. But I have to live that myself. That's what I'm telling myself. And I'm in the Book of Psalms, and I'm reading about David and how David is in all these situations and how he would go to God and he would express his frustrations and his concerns and all that. But at the end of it, he was still saying, but like he still trusted God. He still believed God would ultimately come through for him. But for me, and I think my counselor one day was the one who kind of got me to finally just be a person. Because don't get me wrong, she's a Christian. But when I kept saying, well, yeah, I was reading in Psalms about, how David did, blah, and she was like, but you ain't David. And like she stopped me right there. And I was just like, well, yeah, you're right. But, I'm trying to use that as a way of navigating through, what I'm dealing with is by going to the word. You know what I'm saying? That was my thing. And so one of the things that we unpacked that I didn't even realize was like honestly the guilt and stuff that I had when it came to me actually feeling anything in this situation. You know what I'm saying? And she just kept telling me you gotta feel, you gotta process, you gotta deal with how you really feel. You cannot brush this to the side, and that's what I was kind of trying to do at first. And I can say that this was the first time in my life I've ever been mad at God, like frustrated with God. And I've always known that it's okay to, have questions, to ask why. I've always known it's okay to sometimes, throw a fit at God. I've known that, but I've never had to live that before until now. Because this was a situation where I literally had to trust God and say, okay, God, you blessed us to get pregnant. I can't make this baby come. That's in your field. There's nothing I can do but trust you that you're going to give us a healthy child. And I think my frustrations came in because it was like in a movie or somewhere, like I trusted you. You know what I'm saying? That's how I felt. Like God, I trusted you. Why would you do this? You know what I'm saying? Like, but at the same time, I'm trying to keep it all together, and that just really didn't work. And so once I really started to unpack my feelings and my emotions and stuff, like Tish said, she was in a much better place at that point, and she was able to hold me down. The way that like when she was down, I was
I
able
tried.
to be there for her. You know what I'm saying? And so yeah, I had questions. I'm like, why would he do this? Why would you allow us to get so excited and stuff like that just to let us end up looking like fools? You know what I'm saying? All this stuff. I was sinking, like for real. I really was, and I found myself like reverting, to where I was prior to this situation happening. Like I just told Tish over the weekend, I realized that my motivation to be a better person came with the idea of now I have a wife and a child to look after. Like before I knew she was pregnant, it was my motivation was on God and just me being the best I could be for God. But when I found out she was pregnant, it was like that kicked into overdrive, and it made me take everything I was doing much more seriously. Like making sure that I'm living as clean as possible, working out, eating healthy, monitoring everything that I'm doing. And then when the baby was no more, it was just like my desire for all of that was the same. It just went away. Like I just didn't care anymore, and that was a tough thing. It's something that I'm just now working through. Like I would even wager to say that this situation hit me harder than it hit her because she was
It
down.
did.
She was down for like
It
a
did.
she was down for like a couple weeks. I was down for like a month and just like struggling. And I didn't want to be, but I was trying as hard as I could to fight my way through how I was feeling because I'm like I don't want to feel like this. But I've never experienced anything like this either, so I don't really know how to navigate it. I don't know how to deal with it. And so I think one of the things that this has taught me is that it's okay to feel as a husband. It's okay because at first I felt guilty when it came to me grieving or having my feelings over this because my mind, first of all, is going to her. I'm thinking we can't both be down right now. I have to be the strong one. I have to be there for my wife. She needs me. So I got to put how I feel to the side so that I can take care of her in this moment. And then on top of that, a lot of people who I trust who are older than me, they were giving me advice, older guys that I look up to about the importance of being there for your wife in hard times like these, and you really have to make sure you're looking out for her. And so that's reinforcing this idea in my mind that it ain't no time for weakness. I gotta be there for her. I gotta be strong for her. I gotta be a rock right now. She needs me.
So, but in my mind, I was also thinking like we went half on this baby. Like
Went
it
half.
wasn't just it wasn't just all me. Yes, I was the carrier, and yes, I was the one to feel the physical pain of it, but I was really ready and, you know, looking out for the moment when you was just like, yo, this is how I'm feeling. And it was more so like, okay, this is something that we're going to have to go through together. We're going to have to heal through this together. We're going to have to mend, be there for each other, kind of just fiddle our way through this journey, like side by side, hand by hand, because this is something neither one of us had ever been through. And so when I didn't really see you like, oh, you like checking on me and I'm good and all this other stuff, I'm just like, okay, well, maybe, Lord, maybe you really did give him the super strength to, be able to deal with all of this. And and he's just like, well, one day in therapy, I didn't know that I had permission. I didn't feel like that there was space for me to. And it made me feel bad because it's like, here I am sitting back here waiting for you to come to me or waiting for you to be like, okay, I can't deal with this or something. And it did not, he didn't never say anything until our therapist literally, like he said, was like, okay, how are you? How are you doing? And I think I don't know if I ever asked him how he was doing. I think I was just more so because I was so forthright with how I felt. Randomly, I would say things to him and, things like that. But I don't know. It was something that I felt like we were going to have to go hand by hand, day by day. We walk through this together. Wake up. You having a good day? You having a good day? Kind of thing. And just figure it out day by day. But it was just kind of like okay, I'm down, you strong, and then as soon as I get my strength and my wings, then you fall off. So here I am to, kind of be the strong one for you. And I mean, if that's how it came, that's how it panned out. That's how it panned out. That's fine. But um, it it just it was just different because I was really what I was expecting for him to do or say didn't happen until he was just really told to just strip away everything that you supposed to be in an image and just be who you are and say hey, exactly how you feel.
Yeah. And yeah, like you said, I mean, that was something I didn't realize until therapy when we were talking is that she never did ask me like how I felt. And that wasn't something that I held against her or even cared about because I was in that mindset of it's not about me, it's about her. And so that's kind of just the way it was the way we were kind of carrying on. Um, let's see, Tia Swain, thank you. We appreciate you praying and holding us up. Um, Miss Roslyn said, I think it's harder for men to express this type of loss. Maybe I think they try so hard to be strong for us.
That's true.
Yeah,
I'm saying she's saying that she thinks. So I'm
let
saying
me
I
speak
think
from the
so.
man's perspective.
You can, but I'm just agreeing
You
with
don't know.
her.
You
I
don't know.
don't know because I'm not a man, but I'm saying I agree with her assumption. Now you can speak.
You ain't got my genitals.
Now you right. I don't.
Hey, but nah, I think you and Tish are right. It is hard, and the thing is, I'm not the type of person who's afraid to share how I feel. I'm not afraid to say, "Hey, this is how I feel." You know what I'm saying? Like at times, Tish used to call me too emotional because I would like get in my feelings or
Oof.
whatever. But for this, I just didn't know how to handle it because I've never faced it before. Like as a man, in my mind, I'm thinking this is my time to really step it up and be there for my wife. You know what I'm saying? Especially in a situation like this. I was telling our counselor, it really doesn't feel like there's room for the man to share in that pain because it seems like a lot of the attention goes to the woman. Like that's just kind of how it feels as a man. Like it feels like everybody's focused on the woman, and I get it because to me I'm like I still hold to the fact that I will never know what it was like for her to physically carry something and feel it leave, not be there anymore. I won't know that, right? But at the same time, like she said, we did go in together, and so for me, as what was going to be a father, it's like man, I'm hurting too. You know what I'm saying? Um, which I think just highlights the difference between men and women too. Like she had a lot of friends checking in on her, and as men, I don't think a lot of times we really think to check on each other like that. I mean, I had a few friends who did reach out. Did say, "Hey, man, I want to see how you doing." You know what I'm saying? But not nearly as much. You know what I'm saying? And so it's easy to feel like you're alone in the situation. And so it's like when you couple feeling like there's no support on top of feeling like as a man you're not allowed to feel this way because you need to just suck it up and be there for your wife, it literally just made me feel isolated. It just made me feel like I was by myself in it. And that's why I'm super grateful that we even have a counselor, because our marriage counselor has definitely helped us both to verbalize and kind of work through these things and break down a lot of those stigmas of this is how a man is supposed to be, this is how a woman is supposed to be. Like, no, y'all are a unit. You know what I'm saying? Like Tish said, y'all get through this together. Y'all hold each other up.
So my question to you, um, if someone says, I'm praying for you both, or hey, they come to me, hey, just checking on you and Charles, is that not considered being, people thinking about you? Like, do you not feel like you were not thought about because they didn't contact you directly? Or is it because you were expecting more support from men who don't necessarily know how to handle these situations the best? Or what? I mean, what was it for you that made you feel isolated?
You asked me a question that I just explained.
No,
I just said that.
You,
I just said that about men and like all that. See, she don't be listening to me.
I do.
She don't be listening to me, y'all.
No, you.
So I'll repeat it. Like, but nah, yeah, the part about I definitely didn't speak on that part about like people reaching out to her for both of us. I think for me, for me, it's like I think there's a difference between what was sent and what was received. So when I say that, I mean I think that when people try to support, they mean well. Like in their minds, it's like, hey, sending a message just to Tish and saying I'm praying for both of y'all. That's cool, right? But when you're already not in the best headspace, and you're not getting things directly to you, it's just it doesn't get received the way it was intended. And so I think that's what it was for me at that time. And as far as like other guys, like that part I did say, I know that men just don't. That's just not how men are. Like men don't really typically do that. So I mean, I in all of it, I wasn't blaming anybody, but it was just like that's how I felt.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And sometimes it's irrational. You know what I'm saying? Like for instance, when Tish finally made her post where she talked about, the miscarriage. We finally went public with it. Um, I thought I was cool then, but when she posted it, there were people saying like, "I'm praying for both of y'all, love both of y'all. This is tough on both of y'all." But all I could focus on was the people who were only saying something to Tish, the people who were saying like, "Yes, I'm so sorry this is happening to you, Tish," or "Yeah, that's so tough on a mom," or whatever. And it's just like, but what about the dad? You know what I'm saying? And it's
Yeah.
like you don't even have to go back into it, Tish. I know how ridiculous it was
No,
at
I'm
the
not
time.
saying that it was ridiculous.
Like every time you bring it up, like it just reminds me because now that I'm in a more logical place, I feel ridiculous for feeling that way.
Oh,
Whether I should,
I wasn't gonna say it was ridiculous. I was just gonna say, for the sake of our listeners, you've heard this before, but the next day, because I asked him if he was okay with me posting it in the first place, because I knew the space that he was in, or not even. Nope, you weren't even really
no, I'm still in
in
a
it. You
decent
was
space,
okay, and he was like, "Okay, fine. Are you?" And he asked me, "You better be ready for what comes with that." And I'm like, "I think I'm in a pretty good spot. And so I did post it, and that post got, I don't know, 300 and something likes and over 100 comments. And I literally, the next day after he expressed to me how that post was making him feel, I went through and I counted every single post, every single one. And I was like, okay, who commented for both of us? Who commented to me by myself? Who commented, on his post and more people than not said, "I love you guys. I'm praying for you guys. This is hard." Those things coupled us together. And I was trying to get him to see that, like, we're one. We are one together. So a lot of times when people were reaching out to me, this dude is not social. He's not a social person. Let me finish. Outside of the people that he hangs with and talks to on a regular, he's not really a social person. So a lot of people don't have his phone number. A lot of people are not going to be like, they're more likely to come to me, or come to me and say, "Hey, can I ask your husband, or can your husband do this, or can you ask your husband, or what's your husband's schedule?" Or because they don't, either they don't have his number, they don't talk to him on a regular, or he's just never around. So it's just like, "Hey, Tish, let me get to your husband." So I was also trying to say that too, because it's like, okay, they're saying us, they're reaching out to me, but they're reaching out to me because I'm the person that they talk to the most, or that they feel comfortable with saying, or I'm the person whose number that they have, that kind of stuff. But in that moment, that stuff did not matter. It didn't matter, and he just really wanted to feel like people were cared about him in general as the father.
Yeah,
and I understood it.
I mean, my thing is, and she didn't realize too at the time that by her trying to rationalize the emotions, it was just making me sink more into myself because it was like, and Ricky Potter said it, like emotions are not often logical, and so in my mind, I know that this doesn't make sense, but as you're telling me these things to make me feel better, it's actually making me feel worse for having feelings. And that's something that we talked about in counseling too. It was like, I mean, we got to a point where we actually got a chance to talk, and we just, both realized like even when it comes to each other in marriage, there are times where we don't need to say anything. We don't need to try to fix how the other person's feeling, even if it don't make sense. There are times where she may be feeling some type of way and I don't get it. But I've learned the hard way that I can't preach her down or try to get her to see things clearly in that moment, because the thing is, when the emotions fade, you'll start to see things clearly. Like now I can think way more rational than I did in that moment. You know what I'm saying? But I think that's a lesson for any married couple. You have to give your spouse room to feel whatever it is that they feel. You have to. I mean, if you try to fix your spouse in those moments, or just even offer a solution in those moments, 9 times out of 10, it ain't gonna go the way you hope for.
I think I was just trying to get you to feel better about it. I
But you
wasn't.
you couldn't.
I mean, I know I see that now, but if somebody is like, "Oh, they don't care about me," you're not gonna sit there and just let them sit in that thought. Like, I mean, you might, but
Well, I mean,
if
you
somebody,
remember I even said, like, yeah, you're right. I mean, and I'm not saying that my feelings make sense. That was that day we were at the canal. I just said, like, I'm
yeah,
not even saying my feelings make sense. It's just how I feel.
right. But I guess I'm the type of person. If somebody is sitting there saying something down on themselves, or and something that I know is not true, or that is not logical, I'm more so like, okay, no, that's not what it is. I'm trying to get them to look on the bright side. And sometimes it works for you. A lot of times it don't. So, I mean, that's just kind of how I felt, because I wanted him to know that people love him just as much as they love me. And just like, people love him, I would hope that people love me as much as they love him the same way.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, this was our situation. So if people are pouring in, talking about they're praying and what can they do, if they're doing something for me, they're doing something for us. And I'm not going to sit and be like, oh, Tish, what can be done for you? And I not include him, because I know that we're both dealing with it at the same time. So, yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. And on that same vein, we're gonna get to some of these comments, but on that same vein of advice, something that I think I didn't understand until I had to live it is how, like, I've understood this concept, and so I try to avoid it myself. But now I understand what it feels like to be in a hurtful place, and people are trying to help you. Not speaking of Tish, but people who are on the outside looking in. Like, one of the things that is truly annoying, because I know people mean well, so I'm not trying to say anything rude or disrespectful here. People do mean well when they're trying to offer their sympathies and support and stuff like that, but not all advice is helpful. Like, if you're trying to comfort somebody who's dealing with a loss, you have to honestly let them dictate what that support looks like. I mean, just be there unless they tell you they want to hear something from you. Like, I didn't take anything too out of the way, but some of the comments we got on that post, I did tell Tish, like, I don't want to hear about these people saying they had 2 and 3 miscarriages and then God ultimately blessed them, because I'm like, now my mindset is, oh crap, this could happen again. Like, that's doing more harm than good for me. And it's like, I know people want to be able to relate to your situation, but a lot of times trying to offer unsolicited advice does more harm than good, at least for me, because it was just like, that's not helpful to me. Or people just saying, like, yeah, I've been there, I've dealt with that too. And it's just like, that doesn't make me feel better though. Like, the fact that that's happened for somebody else in the past, it doesn't somehow make my current pain go away. Like, it wasn't a situation where, for me, knowing that other people dealt with it gave me any sort of encouragement or made me feel like, oh yeah, I'm not in this alone. It was just like, I don't want to hear that. The people who just kind of was like, I'm praying for y'all and I love y'all, that was cool with me. But the ones who started, jumping into personal stories and things that they had experienced, it was just like, please stop. Like, somebody sent
I'm
us
the
a book.
opposite.
Somebody
I'm the
sent us a
opposite.
book in our inbox, and I did not read it. I didn't, because I'm like, fam, I'm not reading your 5,000 word essay, even though I know you meant well. I'm not in the headspace to want to read that. So that's just like a quick thing I'm pointing out is that when it comes to that, read the room. When it comes to giving out advice or trying to be there for people, because sometimes, and like Tish said, she's different than me, but sometimes because you don't know how people receive those things, it can do a little more harm than good. And that's just my 2 cents on that. What was you saying, Tish?
I'm opposite because me being able to see other people's testimonies and hearing about the things that they went through, it doesn't automatically take me to, oh, that's might happen to me. I'm looking at the hopeful part of it. Okay, well, you had 2, 3, 4, whatever miscarriages, but now you have a healthy son. No, I don't want to have another miscarriage. That hurts like hell. Like, I'm sorry. But I am not gonna. I mean, when Charles is that way, where he's like, I don't want to hear that. But I don't know. If I sit down with you and you know that I'm going through something or something that you've been through, I don't have an issue with sitting down with you and us talking about the same situation, but how different it might be for
But
us.
see, you also got to keep in mind, by the time you made that post, you were in a place, because we had that conversation. You were in a
Yeah.
place to want to receive that. You weren't in that place prior. Like, you weren't in the place where you wanted to hear those stories and stuff when you were really in the thick of it. For me now, I could hear that stuff and probably be encouraged by
Well,
it.
I think
But
for
I
me,
was at the heart of facing that situation when that happened.
which is
That's
why
what
I
ignited it.
asked about posting it because
Well, I
I
didn't
wouldn't.
know.
I know you
That's
didn't,
like, for me, I really
but
think I overestimated the place I was in. Like, I really thought I was Teflon at that point. Like, come whatever may,
you
I'm
did.
cool. I'm cool. God's got me, and I still to this day believe God's got me. I believe that God gave me exactly the measure of strength I needed to be there for her, and I believe that He got her restored to where she needed to be, and then He gave me the space to feel what I felt. Like,
It's just if I'm in the thick of situations, my friends, the people closest to me know that that's not something I'm going to publicly put out there. So the week that I was miscarrying, or the day that I found out, or even the week after it, nobody knew that except for the people that was closest to us and the people that knew, the people that we told that we were pregnant. I made sure that I told them, okay, we're not pregnant anymore, because I just didn't want to have to revisit the conversation and it came out wrong. I thought you was pregnant. Nope, not no more. So the people that we told, we made sure that I untold. I told them, okay, no more baby, this thing, this or that. But I don't have an issue. I feel like God makes you, and we're like over
don't
time,
worry
so.
about my time.
But
Let's
I'm
go.
trying to see if I just feel like God puts you in spaces with people, or he puts you in things or has you to go through things so that when you're in a place with someone else who has been through something that you have been through, you're able to minister to them a little bit better than somebody who has no clue as to what they're talking about.
100%.
Rather that means you sit there and be quiet. Rather that means you do what my friends did for me that day. They just took me and was like, okay, nope, you're not going home. You're not allowed to go home. This is what you're going to do. You're going to stay with us. We're going to, give you a bunch of laughs, and, we're going to sit around and we're just going to enjoy the day. And, it, like you said, read the room, of course, because I do believe if I seriously, seriously, seriously wanted to go home that day, that the friend that picked me up would have just took me home.
Maybe. Maybe. I
If
don't.
I seriously wanted to go home and be alone, she might have came here and stayed with me.
Yeah, I was about to say,
but
I don't think they would have allowed you to do
I
that.
don't think.
You got to keep in mind who we talking about, the group of people we talking
I
about.
get it.
They wasn't going for that.
I get it.
They wasn't going for that.
I get it, and it's appreciated. But I just said to say we're opposites.
Well, we not so much opposites. Like, that's not the point that I'm even trying to make. I'm just saying the greater point of when you want to be there to comfort people, and our counselor said it the best. People who care about you want you to not feel bad. They want you to not feel the way that you feel. And so a lot of times what they try to do is they try to say things that would be encouraging to them to you. They don't want you to be in that space.
Right.
And all I'm saying is when it comes to you trying to comfort somebody, you have to know who you're dealing with. Tish, she's made it clear what works for her. But for me, when I'm in the thick of the situation, I don't want to hear all of your encouraging words. I just want you to be there. If you're going to support me, just be there. You don't have to say a single word. So I'm just saying, make sure you know the person that you're trying to comfort.
Or even
That's
ask. You can ask. Yeah, what do you need?
That's what I'm saying. Like, because a lot of times people, if they really want your advice, they'll just say, like, how do I deal with this? Like, how do I go through this? Like, that's, to me, that's the best way to do it. Because you might run into somebody like Tish who doesn't mind you saying, well, I just want to share my story with you. This is what I did, what I dealt with. You know, hopefully this can be encouraging to you. But then you might run into somebody like me who, when I'm in it, I'm probably just not going to talk to you anymore because I don't want to be preached to when I'm in a painful place. So just make sure, I think the best policy is to keep quiet. And if you're keeping quiet, you can truly hear the person's needs because they'll tell you. If they're close enough to you, they'll tell you. Looking at some of our comments over here, Miss Roslyn said Makeda was a twin, and when Meshach didn't survive, it was really hard for both of us. But I know that I showed it more. Yeah, that was pretty much us for sure. I
didn't know Makeda was a twin.
Miss Judy Nelson, great discussion. Thank you for tuning in with us. My man Slack said we have had to deal with this between Zion and Zanaya. We lost what we believed was a boy, and agree 100% that each needs to have time and space to deal in their own way. Yeah, 100%. Terrence, man, appreciate you, brother. Miss Judy said this is an eye-opener for me to be more sensitive to the men in adverse situations like this. Yeah. I do think it's easy for dudes to get overlooked, and that's just a cultural thing, especially when you're raised to be like, you have to be strong. You don't show emotion. The thing for me is I wasn't raised that way. Like, I had a dad who, although he didn't cry a whole lot, he never trained me to think that crying was a weakness or anything like that. And so I feel like because that's the overwhelming way of our culture, a lot of times we just kind of forget that men have emotions, that they're human too. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you just look at how, I teach, and there are some kids who their mothers are raising them like, you better not cry. You better not, you know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. And that's perpetuating that stuff, man. We gotta break that. Ms. Rosin said we all need to be more considerate. Everyone handles things differently. Derek Slack again said, I understand the current pain, but as men, we tend to cry in the dark, and this can be unhealthy. Often we need to know that we aren't the only ones dealing with emotions, and having someone on the other side of a testimony, as you are in a test, can be the very thing that helps you through your situation. Yeah, I think it's person specific, man. Because for me, I just know I'm not the type of person that's going to receive that in that moment. If anything, it's going to make me more resistant to it. I do think support is necessary at some point. It's just a matter of when that support comes. So there's a point for me when I'm dealing with something where I don't want support. I just want to process through it myself, figure out my emotions, and then I do get to a point where I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm open. You know what I'm saying? I'm open now to receive that. And then Ms. Judy, again, good point, Charlie, know how to comfort. That is important. So as we get on the train of wrapping this thing up, some lessons learned and blessings confirmed. So Tish kind of said this earlier, but it's just a good thing to know we can get pregnant. That was something we didn't even know. It was up in the air for pretty much the entirety of our marriage. We didn't even know it was a possibility. So to me, that's a blessing in and of itself. That's a lesson in and of itself. And I still don't believe God to be a liar. I believe what I said he told me. And he did give us what we wanted, which was to get pregnant. So it's just a matter of next time.
We need to pray the whole prayer. Yeah, Lord.
Next time, big homie upstairs, I'm going to need you to, give me that package. You know what I'm saying? I need it to come all the way through this time. But yeah, even though, now I can truly say from a real place that God is still good. You know what I'm saying? It was a forced thing to say that at first because for the longest I couldn't. I was like Tish, for the past month of June, I wasn't praying like that. I wasn't doing morning encouragement posts because I wasn't getting up to meditate in the mornings anymore. Like I just wasn't interested. I was just like, and I had a meltdown at one of our work meetings where we were all kind of venting frustrations, and I just flat out said all of that. I'm like, God, look, we did things to the best of our ability the right way. I ain't get nobody pregnant before marriage. I tried my hardest to do things right the way I was taught. We get together, we're enjoying each other, and we're trying to have kids. We can't have kids, but then I look and I see, people younger than us having kids and they're not married. People having kids and they don't even want their children. Like all these things happening around us, and we're begging you to have a child, and you won't give us a child. And then you finally let us see what it's like, and you take our kid away. Like what's up with that? You know what I'm saying? Like once I finally said that, I think that was the thing that got me on the road to really healing, because that was like probably my most real moment with God. And yeah, man, like I never forgot when you took me to that concert that night, and that Mexican dude, the comedian, was like, um, he realized once he got real with God, God would get real with him or whatever. Like I'm serious, I still carry that with me to this day, man. Um, what else, man? I still believe another lesson we learned is that God put us together for a reason. We have this dynamic that we've seen play out a lot of being able to hold each other up. Like when she's down, I'm usually in a pretty good place. When I'm down, she's in a pretty good place, and we like tend to be able to be just what the other person needs, like in those moments. Um, so, Tish, how have you learned how to be there for a spouse who's dealing with the after effects of like a traumatic or a tragic experience?
I'm still learning.
What have you learned?
I mean, the things that I've learned is specific to you because
That's what I'm
you
saying.
are my spouse. But I don't know. I mean, I pretty much learned that you you're fueled through isolation and being alone. And when you are ready to talk, you'll come around and you'll have your conversations and you eventually, make your way on the spiral up. But I think I've learned to just kind of let you be. And it's super hard sometimes because it's just, us here by ourselves. And when you just not having the best day and you just want to be alone, it's like, oh my God, okay, now I either got to go out somewhere by myself or I have to stay here and I'll be in one part of the house and he'll be in another part of the house until he comes and decides that he's ready to talk. Um, it was a little hard not to take it personal, especially when it's repeated, for weeks at a time and stuff like that. But I guess I've learned to just kind of learn your way of processing. And as long as your way of processing is to process to get better, and if staying by yourself is what helps you get better, then that's what I need to give you. When I start seeing the reverse, then that's when,
You're just gonna make your way into my space.
yes.
Girl, can you
Yes.
leave me alone?
Yes.
But I think like the thing I learned about myself, well, I've always known I'm an introvert. Slack said he's an only child. True, true. Um, but I'm an introvert, believe it or not. I'm an extroverted introvert, as they say. I know how to be social when I have to be. With people that I enjoy being around, I'm very social. But for the most part, I'm an introvert. Like social interaction takes a lot out of me. So what I didn't know up until a couple years ago was that being an introvert also pertains to your energy levels. So introverts get energy basically like a recharge from just spending time alone, where they can process through their thoughts and emotions and stuff. Extroverts get recharged from being around people that they care about. That gives them life, right? It's not the same for me. So a lot of times, Tish would be like, "Hey, let's go do this or let's do that," trying to make me feel better. But in my mind, I'm like, that's not going to make me feel better, because those moments sometimes feel like a chore for me if I'm already at a zero, because I don't have the emotional energy to give in those moments. And so, yeah, I really appreciate her being willing to give me that time to work through those things, man. But one thing this year of 2020 has definitely been marked by tragedy. It's been one thing after another, but I told Tish the other day, I'm grateful to know that tragedy hasn't had the typical effect that it tends to have in marriages where it pulls two people apart. I feel like our tragedies have brought us closer and closer together. Like it's made me really look at her and be like, you're really my life partner. You're really the person who's there for me in the darkest moments. Like you hurt with me. We're going through this together. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's a good feeling. Like us having to go through things is not cool, but knowing that I'm not going through it alone and I got this one right here with me to go through it, it makes it a lot more bearable. It's like, yo, we in this together for real. Like we taking these scars together. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what's up to me. Um, Tish, I believe you made a comment at one point that you said you feel like we've grown more this year than our previous four combined.
Yes.
Why do you say that?
Because every month has meant something. Every month this year has been something in regards to our marriage that has made us, okay, regroup. Oh, learn from this. Okay, now we got to go back. So, January to February, we learned a lot of lessons. I would say that. The podcast before this one, I believe, is the one that we talked about our month of February. But January, when Candace died, that kind of taught us how to grieve together because we didn't grieve well together. So that ended up teaching us how to grieve well together. February into March, when my grandmother died, again, that taught us pretty much how to grieve again together, or how for you to be there for a spouse when they're grieving.
And even in the midst of us maybe not being on the best.
Yeah. Us dang near falling apart in February. That, like I said, it was a whole lesson in itself. We learned how to recommunicate with each other, how to, accept each other for who and what we are in that moment, and how to pray for each other, and how to genuinely give our spouse to God and just leave him there. And then, March and April, dealing with you and your addictions and you trying to overcome those. That was a whole nother beast. And then May, getting pregnant and dealing with miscarriage. And then the whole month of June, basically you dealing with the aftermath of the miscarriage. And now here we are. So that's why I'm like, July, I don't know what you have for us, but
2020 go away.
I really would like for you to be a little nicer.
I'm like, can we just cut this year short?
But yeah,
is that possible?
What?
Dude, can we just cut this year short?
No, we can't. We have to keep pressing on.
Oh my God.
So I'm just, it's just really taught us. We've been through more. Like in the years past, it might have been okay. Maybe this is happening in this period of the year, and then the rest of the year is cool or something like that. But literally, this year has not let up. It's been something every single month that has literally made us go like this to each other. And it's like every single time, you better hold on for dear life, because you cannot slip through the cracks and slip away from each other like we were starting to do in February.
Yeah.
So that's why I said I feel like we've grown more, because we're having to grow and go through this stuff together, and we're learning through counseling. We're learning through, the word, and we're learning through praying and experience of what to do to help us to journey side by side instead of apart.
Girl, I love you. Stop touching my phone before you mess something up. You know you have a tendency to just mess something up. Hey, listen. I don't mind this episode being a little bit longer because this is a pretty serious topic. But we at the end, basically. last few things I learned, and one of the biggest ones, my wife is a strong woman. I love you, girl. Like,
Oh,
she is strong. Like, I didn't know how this situation was gonna hit
right.
her. I didn't know how this year was gonna hit her. Like she said, between losing one of her best friends, losing her grandmother, then having to put up with me, having to deal with the dynamics of what our marriage was doing at the time, like then losing a child, and she still just keeps going. Like that's it's something to be said about black women in general. But I'm glad to know that I have a strong, faithful, God fearing, committed black woman in my corner.
Oh,
Like you, the
that's
real
so
deal.
sweet.
But yeah, God also got to give you the space to be human, man. Like I don't know who needs to hear that, if anybody, but know that you're not a robot, okay? And God's got thick skin. He ain't worried about your little fits that you throwing and stuff like that. He welcomes that. He gives you the space to do it because at least you're coming to him instead of turning away from him. Um, and yeah, what was that thing you shared about that blew my mind where you was like, if you had had the baby with your new job, what would have happened?
So he was talking about lessons and blessings, and I literally got a job offer the weekend, that Friday before Memorial Day. I was working a temporary job, and I put in my notice for, I was saying, okay, I got a job offer. I can work another week, or I can work two. The boss at the time was just like, well, go ahead, bye. You can make this your last day. And at first I was mad about that because I was just like, ugh. But that Monday or that following Tuesday is when I started to miscarry. So literally I had a whole 2 weeks off to not work, have to deal with any, employment or anything. Um, and that whole 2 weeks was when I was dealing with the miscarriage. 1 week physically, the second week emotionally. I started my new job the Monday after, like, I was totally done mentally and physically with all the miscarriage stuff. That was one blessing because I did not. First of all, had I been at that other job, she probably would have let me go anyway because I was miscarrying. Second, um, this job that I have, maternity leave, FMLA, all of that stuff, you can't get that until after you've been at the job for a year. Had I had a baby in January, I would not be able to get any of that. And I would have had to been off work with no pay, with no leave, no nothing. So that was the second blessing. And I always told Charles that I feel like our our marriage is turning into a ministry. This podcast that we do, people listen, people talk about, come up to us randomly. Oh, I listened to y'all podcast about this. This helped me, that. And I mean, this is something that is fun for us, but I'm learning that our marriage and the transparency and us being willing to share pretty much dang near everything that happens to us has turned into a true like ministry. I feel like at some point we're going to be sitting on the couch and there's going to be another young couple coming to us, talking to us at some point in our lives. And the only way we're going to be prepared to talk to these couples is by experience. God, with the help of God and through wisdom and experience. So if I have to be the guinea pig, the dummy, the vessel that God uses, and I have to go through all of this stuff to either help or prevent or steer somebody away from something that doesn't happen in our marriage or in my personal life, then the Lord's will be done. And I literally, that's what I said when I came out of the physical part. I was just like, okay, God, if we have to marry, counsel a couple, or some lady comes to me in the midst of a miscarriage at some point down the line, I'm going to look up at you and I'll be like, okay, I understand. Even if it don't, I can never say that I don't know what that feels like. A lot of women have went through miscarriages and they don't talk about it. It's just something that you don't talk about losing a child, whether it was stillborn, miscarried, I don't know. But if we gotta be the vessels, then that's just what we gotta be. And so, I'm not saying that, praying that, the worst of the worst of the worst of the worst happens to us. That's not what I want, Jesus. But what I am saying is, whatever happens, I'm not going to be that person that shuts up and is like, oh, I can't talk about that. Oh, that didn't happen to me. Or, oh, I'm not telling my children not to do this because, I'm just going to be, we're just that open book now to the whole entire world because we're a podcast. But that's just kind of how I feel. Like, this miscarriage was not, in vain. It was one guy saying, hey, Pickaboo, I'm still here. I heard that y'all wanted to get pregnant. I just wanted to give you a glimpse of my yes. 2, y'all had to go through this because y'all going to eventually help another couple here soon on down the line. And you're going to be able to speak exactly to their pain because you have been there. So, that's what it is.
This girl.
Anyway,
preaching to these folks.
Come on.
Talk to them.
Kenya Carr said, thank you for sharing. Both of you are truly inspiring. May God bless both of you.
With all the desires of your heart. She put it on both of her.
Oh, okay.
We love you, Kenya. Appreciate you.
K.
Appreciate you.
All right.
So, yeah, man, to wrap it up, where do we go from here?
Keep trying.
Yeah. I mean, that part ain't never boring. You feel me? That ain't never boring. But for me, my 3 things, man, is if he did it once, he can do it again. Love God for who he is, not for what he can give you. And then I'm just taking things one day at a time, and I'm grateful that we even had the chance to experience that. So that's all I got. Tish, go ahead and take us out of here.
Well, we thank you for listening to another episode of Beautiful Frustration Podcast. We will be back next week. We're back on it. Thank you. So please tune in to us. If you are an Apple listener, please drop 5 stars on the Apple reviews for us. Android listeners, if you go to Google Podcasts, we're not on Google, are we?
Yeah, so we're on Google Podcasts,
Spotify, Pocket Stitcher, all that.
Pocket Cast.
Pocket
Stitcher.
Cast.
You feel me?
We're on all of your actual, your favorite podcast sites. So share it if there's a couple that is going through this, or a couple that anybody that's just want to hear our testimony. Share our podcast, all 20-something episodes. And
we're on 31 now.
Okay, all 31 episodes.
Hey, shout out to Lil Bro. Gage, I see you, man. Love you, brother.
Okay. Well, again, we thank you. We are also still in the process of wanting to be brand ambassadors for people. So if you would like for me to wear your merch during our podcast, or if you would like for a spotlight during our podcast for your Black-owned business or for your own, your business, let us know and we'll be glad to shout you out.
Yes. And one good one while we're on here, if you have not, there's a man, Derek Slack, that I was talking about, who's in my comments section. He and his wife, Taria, are in the process of starting up their business where they are selling CBD-infused lemonade. It is amazing from what I've heard. I have not had it myself.
It's good.
Yeah, like I'm really waiting to get my batch. But, yeah, man, if y'all didn't know, hit up Derek Slack. They're going to be doing orders this weekend. Get some, man. They selling up to gallons of this stuff, all right? And from what I heard, it's super relaxing and it's super good, okay? I can't wait to get my hands on some of that.
All right. Good night. God bless you. We love you.
Oh, last thing.
What?
We are starting up the Beautiful Frustration YouTube channel. Oh. Tish should be posting a link to that tomorrow, and we'll be putting the live video from our podcast on there, along with us just doing couple stuff. So, maybe some, vlogging, some experiences that we get to share as a married couple. We're going to share it with y'all, man, so y'all can see the crazy stuff that we be talking about before it gets discussed on here sometimes. So, yeah, this time, 3rd close, I swear I'm done.
Amen. Good night.